when we first started this years ago, pre-COVID, and the market looked a lot different. Obviously, there was a lot of inflated numbers going on out there. The thought was, okay, we'll build this up and then we're on to something else. But we're so tied to this and we're so personally invested, and there's so much determination because I think you keep seeing products hit the market that are the opposite of wellness and the opposite, in my opinion, of cannabis and all the good that that plant brings to us.
I've spent decades mastering the art of building, scaling, and winning in tech and in cannabis. Success isn't just my goal, it's my process. Today, Angela Brown of Coast Cannabis joins me to share her inside story of running a family-owned business and crafting award-winning products that stand out in a crowded market.
Something way back in the day, we didn't have a way as an independent group, and you probably know this being an independent product manufacturer, we didn't have a way to test our final product until it went to a store. And that was something that I talked about at the CCC public comment leading up to it. And I use the analogy of a chef. Imagine a chef builds the meal of the day and they taste all the components leading up to it. You know, they can taste the non-infused, whatever. And final product, nope, the diners will let me know how it is.
Exactly.
No way. You have no idea. Too much salt, not enough salt, etc. So the effect. And that was something that we got the CCC to recognize and to correct.
From navigating licensing struggles across states to her take on social consumption, the 2-driver rule, and the CCC's memo on pinning out samples, Angela offers insights you won't hear anywhere else.
Again, running a business, sometimes it's kind of like that pennied out case. That's not economical.
That's a loss leader.
That's a loss leader.
Sales, right?
Exactly. And that is really tough in an environment where businesses are used to having a loss leader to drive sales. It makes it very challenging. You cannot have a loss leader.
If you're looking to build a brand that thrives while breaking down industry stigmas, this episode is a must listen.
I am Angela Brown, and I'm the co-founder and CEO of Coast Cannabis. Coast is the first independent product manufacturer here in Massachusetts. We are proud to be woman-owned and family-operated. We have a focus on doing our own extraction through finished goods with the inclusion of edibles. Here you can see our gummies, chocolates, vaporizers, and now concentrates.
Whoa.
Yeah, ever-growing list.
Yeah, I can imagine. So you chose to diversify, I guess, the product portfolio.
We did. I would say for Brian and I, my spouse and co-founder, we've always been extremely passionate about concentrates. That's how he and I consume, aside from edibles, is concentrates. So selfishly, we wanted to bring some of our own concentrates to market. So it's a small focus of ours, but, you know, in true fashion, we're doing it the best way. We're doing everything. We're partnering with some of the best cultivators in Mass. We built out a live rosin lab, and we're creating all of our own products. So we're really proud, but you could say it's a little bit more on the passion side that's driving that. It's not something we're taking, you know, to other markets. It's really a focus just here for our Massachusetts consumers.
Yeah, because I think that is, you know, a lot of people, when they come into the cannabis industry, a lot of people are coming in for passion, and there's another group coming in for profit. And in this particular case, you're saying, like, let's go to the passion route specifically for something that we love to enjoy, such as concentrates. But really quickly, you'd mentioned your spouse, Brian.
Yes.
So this is a family affair.
This is a family affair. Yes. Also involved is my father-in-law, Donald.
Great.
Brian's dad. Yes. So, and his mom. So definitely family affair on our side.
So how does that dynamic work? Are you guys just sick of each other at the end of the day? You're like, you go in your corner of the house, I'll go in the corner of my house.
Somehow Brian and I still want to spend a lot of time together. We do joke when we're both going to the office, which is a pretty far commute for us. It's about an hour from where we live. Wow. We do drive separately. We joke it's the only time apart that we get. So we do find some time. But no, it's been actually great. I would say cannabis is really tough, especially starting in the beginning when there's a lot of the policy, there was a lot of the laws being formed and regulations. There's so many ups and downs, continue to this day, this very week, ups and downs. Having your family to lean on, at least in our case, I think has been the best. In some ways, knowing that you can't stop because your family is on your back has been the motivation through some of the toughest times for me. To say, you know, there is no, I'll just go get a job. This is not just me. This is us. And that has made the hard times sometimes feel harder, but also you get through them and you look back and you're like, okay, on to the next.
Right, we did it.
You did it. Yeah. You know there'll be another one though.
Oh yeah, there's constant fires nonstop in cannabis. We're also kind of like the living spirit of that here. So when it comes to the family side of this, I always think to myself, because people always say like, oh, don't start a company with like one of your friends because you're going to lose that friend kind of thing. But you've been able to make this successful, and actually it's helped you said.
We feel so. I do always joke that, we're not at the end, and you hope that nothing negative would ever happen, and you hope that those bonds that you form, but you hear that every day, right? Don't go into business with your best friend. Right. Don't borrow money from your family.
Right.
Yikes. Well, we're breaking some rules here. But hopefully it works because there are those success stories. There are family-owned and operated businesses that are generations and upon generations. So we know it can work. I think what it comes down to maybe is how you separate those moments between business and personal life.
You have to make a clear cut, I would imagine, because it's so easy. Hey, let's go out to dinner, and then all you talk about is business, right?
Yes. And there are moments when, one of us has to talk the other back, but you do have to set boundaries.
Right.
Because I think it's by nature, it totally engulfs your life when you start a business. Or in some ways, I feel like it should, because you are starting a business. It is a really big deal. It takes a lot of work. I think sometimes a lot of people want to sugarcoat it and say, work-life balance. Yes, it should exist, but for the founder in the beginning, I don't know how that's possible because it's so hard to start a business. If you don't give it your all, I don't know how you would get started. Not to say it should take your all forever. You should be away from your family forever. But in the beginning, I think it's impossible to avoid that always on. But as we are building and growing, we are finding that we're able to separate, have moments. And heck, we even took a vacation, which was crazy. So that was awesome.
The two co-founders were out, but everything survived. Everything worked. We got back. Everything was there still, right?
Our
Nothing
team
burned
is
down.
amazing.
Yeah.
No, and they are so great. They assured, obviously the jitter's about to leave. Well, should we go? And our team is just that we got it. And of course, and it's not that I doubted, but it's just putting it all on them, right? It is letting go. It's saying, okay, goodbye. Mom and dad are going out for the night, or in this case, a couple days.
Yeah. And so, like, do you guys both have the same role, or is it just like you focus more on the finance or the marketing and he focuses more on operations and the whatever?
Those are kind of the lines we draw, but they're very blurred. I would say I don't step into operations. That's his territory. On like accounting, all that, that's my territory. Where we see a lot of us collaborating and working together is on when it comes to branding and product development stuff for the business, because that is both of us. We are building this together. We both have ideas and input, but even those conversations are generally bigger team ones anyway. So it just so happens that both of us get involved in those conversations.
Right, because it's more, and because there's some operational aspects to it as well that needs to be addressed.
Of course.
So what is, so like, for those that don't know, Coast, that's a DBA.
Yes.
What is T-Bear?
Well, T-Bear came from
like a teddy bear?
Well, she was. It was our beloved dog. Oh. Sadly, she had passed almost 3 years ago. It'll be 3 years this year, and I still cry daily about it. So Tinky the bear was her name. She was a Pomeranian and looked like a little bear cub. So when we were forming the company, this was back in 2017. And back then, I mean, banking, all of that was unheard of. Even in Massachusetts, you only had the one bank, and they were only touching medical then. So really, our goal when we were creating kind of this first business name was to have it nothing about cannabis, totally unrelated. And who else to honor than the love of our life, our dog. So we created T-Bear. It actually worked very well. Many people thought we were a teddy bear company.
A toy company or something.
A toy company, yeah. So it made it really easy, I think, on our emails when they came through. We didn't get a lot of hiccups and stuff like that.
Yeah, I find like we still struggle with email issues. We emailed somebody the other day, got a bounce back, and we were just like, how is this still a problem? And I can even imagine back in 2017 when you first incorporated, like I totally get that reasoning, because one of the reasons why I called something Good Feels was because I was like, it can't be like good feel, or everyday cannabis was actually the original name. And
That's a good one.
Because I believe that everybody can use cannabis
Every day,
right? And not be some kind of, I'm going to be slouching on the couch all day and watching TV. Although everybody can do that too.
That could be your day too.
Yeah, exactly. No judgment here, because I know there's a lot of people who just want to kick back. I especially love to kick back at the end of the day with some cannabis. Going and starting the whole process. Imagine starting a company and not having access to a bank.
Yes.
Like, you're going to keep, you're going to have it in your personal account, and you kind of like, I hope they don't find out.
Right.
You feel like a criminal from day one, basically.
You do. And that, we were really lucky. I'd say there's a few things, right? There's hard work, determination, and there's a little bit of luck. So for us, we were able to set up banking right away as a non-cannabis business, kind of while we went through that. So that's also something I think a lot of people, when they set out, yes, your determination is to create a cannabis company, but you're not there yet. So be careful with what you tell people, and it'll help you go a long way. I'm not saying lie, but technically you're not a cannabis company.
Not until you get that commence.
Until you get that commence, or until you really start going down that path, you're a business with hopes to do something in cannabis. So go start a bank account, right? Go do these things if you can. Never lie.
Yeah. Do you have any tips on that? Because it's like, do you have any of those horror stories in the back when you mentioned cannabis and it blew up in your face?
Not so. On banking side, again, luckily we've had banking since day one. I think some of it has come from, actually we're dealing with it right now. So not so much back then. Back then you dealt more, because I feel like we were having conversations very early on for East Coast. At least, we were having conversations with groups who were buying out equipment, looking at it, speccing 2018, 2019, doing build out, etc. So you were definitely still having that whole green tax. There were companies that were specializing in cannabis equipment, but it was just an offshoot of another company with a 30% markup.
Kind of manufacturing for gummies, and then on like Haribo gummies or something like that. Right. You're like, hey, we've got equipment for that too. I'd like to buy some. And you mentioned the word cannabis, and then...
Exactly. The rate goes up. Or we did have companies back then, actually not, like, I remember there were a couple food companies that wouldn't send us samples.
They wouldn't work with us.
Yeah. And we were like, okay, we haven't dealt with that anymore. What we're dealing with right now is actually 401k. We're having nightmare issues with that. And I won't name the company because I'm not there yet. I'll reserve that right to put them on blast. But we're dealing with them. But also we found out that they are kicking their cannabis clients off after they've invited us on. I did not seek this company out. They sought me out. I verified with them multiple times, you accept cannabis. And my understanding is they didn't have that approved with whoever their parent company is, or
so
whatever.
Salesperson went
not even just sales, like just like,
hey, let's go start a bunch of cannabis companies, not with any approval.
It seems like it's almost the company, and then whoever does the actual like plan holding, which is a larger company, is the one who's saying no go on cannabis. So I don't want to say they went without proper. It sounds like a little bit of confusion, but they're telling cannabis companies you have to leave our platform now. And that's really, that's a lot of work. That's money. That's just, it's unfair.
Well, now there's a 401k, and now there's money in those accounts. Transfer them out or whatever.
Yep.
And then what bank is going to receive that? You kind of just have to be like, mum's the word, no, don't mention cannabis. We're just going to transfer it into like Fidelity or something random.
Well, we don't want to go that route because we're concerned with how open we were with this, and they assured us, we're like, so we're speaking with two companies right now, not to bore the viewers, because 401k, trust me, it's not that fun. No offense to my 401k peeps, but we're between two companies right now that specialize.
Okay.
Really do.
Well, I have to follow up with you after that, because we actually just got a 401k plan, which, for people who don't know, 401k plans in cannabis are kind of unheard of. It's very, very rare.
Very rare do they want to touch, because, again, everything falls under the federal. They start looking at stuff that they work in the federal markets. They handle these types of clients. They don't want to touch cannabis. And that's where we just need some clarity, I think, from our federal government.
Yeah, well, of course.
Are we going to, is the federal government going to impose any sort of retaliation, fine, whatever it might be, on groups doing business in cannabis? I feel like if they would just come out and make that statement, it would help a lot, because that's what they tend to follow.
And then there's a clear line of where it's going to go.
Right.
Because there's also people who believe in like states' rights, right? It's just like, it's Massachusetts' right to do all these things. And so you should be able to service these customers in Massachusetts, whether or not it's federally legal or not. I digress. Because 401ks are quite boring.
Exactly.
Having run a personal finance website for over a decade, yes, they're quite boring. So I guess, and you also mentioned in the beginning, the end. Is there an end, or are you trying to make this a generational thing like you had mentioned?
I don't know generational. I think there's a little bit too unknown for the cannabis industry, I think, to say, could it be? I hope that would be a dream. The current model, I don't think could work financially. If there is no reprieve in the industry, I don't know how the industry will succeed. So I'm not quite sure on that sense. I think Coast as a brand, yes, could continue on generational, and I'd love to see that. So we're not quite sure what the end is. When we first started this years ago, pre-COVID, and the market looked a lot different. Obviously, there was a lot of inflated numbers going on out there. The thought was, okay, we'll build this up and then we're on to something else. But we're so tied to this and we're so personally invested, and there's so much determination because I think you keep seeing products hit the market that are the opposite of wellness and the opposite, in my opinion, of cannabis and all the good that plant brings to us, that we're like, no, let's keep going. And that's why we keep innovating and bringing out new products, is because we feel we know as consumers, and I feel like there's not enough consumers running companies, but that's another topic. As consumers, I feel we have an understanding of what consumers are looking for and how to go full circle, not full circle, but to start off, how people are using it. Is it specific for sleep, pain, or is it, I just want to veg out on a Sunday and kind of forget that tomorrow's Monday? Great. We have products for you for that because we feel that exact same way.
Yeah. So we're
TBD.
TBD with the end, actually.
With the end.
So, but then you had mentioned that you've gone into concentrates. You love concentrates, and you and your spouse Brian love concentrates, and so therefore you were like, let's do something. And almost because we're the consumer, let's make a high quality product for ourselves.
Yes.
So when it comes to that strategy, and that's not something you're bringing to other states, and we're going to get to the other states in a second, but how does your product development work internally? Is there like a committee? Is there one person on the team that's just saying, hey, here's our next flavor or formula?
Everything has always been a team effort. And I think it started because it was just, for the most part, Brian and I and his father starting the company, we needed people, right? So by nature, we grabbed immediately our first hires. So back in 2019, we interviewed at a coffee shop down the road because we didn't even have power yet. We weren't fully built out. And, we brought on our original team members, and it's really cool that 2 of them are still with us to this day. So really just exciting that we, 6 years with the team this year, which is so cool. We have other team members who have hit 5 years. So it's just been really awesome. But it's a team effort. So as the company, it kind of started to be everyone at the table. As the company's grown, we have more representation coming from departments. So we do actually have a committee called our NPI committee. And
what is NPI?
It's called, we're changing, I believe we settled on new product initiatives.
Okay.
NPI, yeah. So we have people coming from various departments on that. And it's a mix of new, but also improvements, changes, tweaks, the dreaded conversations are the things we need to kill, or the things we need to back burner. We rate things out. When it comes to flavors, every single flavor we have has been a suggestion of someone at the companies, not just one person.
Yeah, because I know you guys have a lot of unique flavors that you don't really see in the market.
No, it's really...
Which one is this one right here? This is Tropical Punch.
Yes.
So
that is our live rosin. Yes. So that's coming again from the live rosin.
Are you pressing? Are you squeezing?
We are. Yep.
You guys do like solventless there? Or do you guys have like big ice hash machines or anything like that? Or are you getting like flour and you're just pressing the flour directly? Like how does...
They are creating some ice water and we're pressing. So it depends on what's coming into the lab that day and what they're working on. The lab is great, though. I mean, it's really small. We have 2 guys in there, and they are just absolute beasts cranking it out. A lot of our flour for that is coming from Picnic. So we're pressing a lot of the flour.
Ezra.
Yeah, it is Ezra. So grow some killer flour. We've been using that. So what was really awesome and what people really benefit from our products is that the same rosin that we're pressing and putting into the concentrate jars and into our rosin vape line is going into our gummy line. So that's actually where we were doing a lot of our, I wouldn't say R&D in a sense like, oh, it's throwaway, we're going to do that. But as we were perfecting the production and all of that, that is what we were always using for our rosin line of gummies. So it's always a top of the line experience. So we've been getting amazing feedback on
that's
our rosin line.
Delicious, by the way. Tropical punch.
Oh, it's great. And we have a strawberry guava one too, which is really, really amazing.
I just love, like, I know this is definitely debatable for a lot of people because everybody has an opinion about it, but like, I actually really like the taste of wheat too. Something like
people do, yes.
Something like a live rosin, I feel would just be just like that nice finishing touch of like, oh, this is actually wheat. You know,
yes.
It's enjoyable to me.
Exactly.
But when it comes to, I guess you already hinted at a few things that are, so you're launching all these products through NPI Group, and you've got all these different kind of ideas in the queue, and you know, you might have like we have an R&D room that we go to all the time, and you know, we probably have anywhere between 20 to 40 things cooking at the same time of all different types of formats and stuff like that. And not beyond just flavors. Like, you launch the flavor, you launch a new product, I should say. So the landscape's changing a bit. And the reason why I'm tiptoeing around this question is the fact that, like, we've been talking, we had a big conversation last week regarding penning out of samples. And so the ability for us to provide samples to teams of, say, like 50 bud tenders or something like that, it's not really feasible under the current regulations to do the vendor samples, which I think you can only send like 6 packages or something like that through.
Yeah, I believe there's some
like through the vendor sample version, versus going to an event like Flower Expo and individually handing out samples to bud tenders and even buyers and stuff like that. So do you have any strong opinions, I guess, about the pennying side of this?
So actually, yeah, the bulletin was definitely a little confusing, and I was out at the CCC on Thursday for public comment on another topic, and unfortunately didn't get to grab anyone on that because I think it sent a lot of confusion through the industry, and I can understand, but in my opinion, the bulletin seemed to be talking out of two sides. If we're sending, I think, samples to the store, we have to send them at a rate that they can be sold. So what the hard part is normal CPG can just send free samples. We can't do that. Per the regulations, cannabis can't go for free. So this idea of a penny became the norm, and that started so long ago. So I am confused on why it's being a negative now. It seemed like what they were more talking about was, as you touched upon, people kind of bringing product to places. And I can see their angle because technically that's not what the sample program is for. But I have to urge the CCC, if they're listening, we have to create a way that we can safely and responsibly track, whatever that might be, a way to sample out our products to people who are over 21 at events. I really think they got to set something up like that because as this market becomes more and more saturated and more compressed, it's try it before you buy it. That's how you succeed in groceries if you're a new brand. And we just got to figure out a way because Massachusetts has been the strictest with that. You know, something way back in the day, we didn't have a way as an independent group, and you probably know this being an independent product manufacturer, we didn't have a way to test our final product until it went to a store. And that was something that I talked about at the CCC public comment leading up to it. And I use the analogy of a chef. Imagine a chef builds the meal of the day and they taste all the components leading up to it. You know, they can taste the non-infused, whatever. Right. And final product, nope, the diners will let me know how it is.
Exactly.
No way. You have no idea. Too much salt, not enough salt, right, etc. So the effect. And that was something that we got the CCC to recognize and to correct. But it didn't fully correct it. It kind of created this sampling realm, which is confusing for people.
And it's funny because it sounds like the way it's being described is almost like a loophole, but in reality, it is compliant. And I think it just raises, like, if they were to try to force that to actually, again, because it is confusing, but the way I'm reading it is you have to charge a reasonable amount if you're going to eventually put it in front of I mean, at the end of the day, a consumer. But it's like, it also, of course, it would ban the sale to consumer through that program as well. It's not like, you know, you penny it out to your employee and then your employee's going to go turn it around and sell for $10 to a consumer. Like, that would obviously not be allowed.
That's what I'm wondering if they were trying to get to, because I think you hear, you know, that people feel there are groups that are doing that, right? Their
version is their number one thing, is they have to protect the children or whatever.
But I don't think it's not people. Maybe I'm standing on a soapbox. I don't feel any group is pennying stuff out for it to be diverted. What they're doing is they're pennying things out because they are desperate to get their products on shelf. So they are saying, I'll sell you one case at regular price and I'll penny out this entire case. You can sell that pennied out case for as much as you want. So what you're giving the retail store is full carte blanche to make a massive profit
for them.
Margin off that allotment. So they're not looking at the one case I bought. They're now looking at 2 cases for one, which plays a bit back into normal CPG. When they look at pricing stuff for promotions, it's often that they get things free, discounted. That's how the savings get passed on to the consumer.
Yeah.
But it's very confusing because that seems like a business decision to me.
Not a regulatory.
Exactly.
Yeah, I agree.
Listen, I love it. If people couldn't give things away, giving things away for free is a lot to keep up with. It's very expensive.
Well, we were also, and when I had Commissioner Roy on a couple months ago, it was, they were talking about equal enforcement.
Yes.
Big topic. Because it's just like, well, if somebody figures out a loophole to do like a pennied out sample and I'm trying to follow that particular memo and be like, well, I can't do this way anymore. What do you like? So that person's now going to have an advantage, right? Because they interpreted it differently. So, but besides the pennying out stuff, very confusing. We're all kind of trying to navigate at the same time, like what that actually means for our individual businesses. And as an independently owned product manufacturer, we don't have the budgets to be able to compete where other people do, right? So for us, we're trying to find every little lever we can in order to make sure we get people's hands and products in their hand. What other initiatives? You said you just spoke at the commission.
Yes.
Union Station.
At Union Station, yes, in Worcester. And that was about the 2-driver rule. I am a big believer that the safety, I think, enforcement has been debunked. I think everyone has come out to say, hey, we put a lot of safety measures in place. Luckily, nothing bad has happened. That's great. The hard part now is, why do some of us have the regulation and others don't? So my big belief, if it's a burden for one, it's a burden for all. And if it can't be a safety argument anymore, then let's remove it for everyone as a requirement. You as a business still would like to put 2 people in the van because you're going on a big drive. It's a huge order. It'll be a lot faster if 2 go. Great. The thought of, we're in a town where there's 3 dispensaries in our town. We have to send 2 people to deliver an order of might be a small order, they're local, a couple of cases to this dispensary. I have to step back and say, we're going from one licensed facility to another. Both have good intentions. And I'm not saying people have bad intentions, but the person in the receiving is not looking to cause any sort of issue, right? They're going to take the product in, they're going to follow their SOP, they're going to do their job, they're at work. We're going to do our job. We're at work. We're all adults. We have GPS cameras, etc. That's where I just push back. So that was my argument. Let's remove it. If it's a burden for one, it's a burden for all.
But we're seeing other people who are very much just like, no, we create an unfair level playing field because some companies will still choose to use 2, and therefore it's a more burden on them. Is what I'm hearing. Because you had actually mentioned, this is very interesting. So for smaller orders, like under $1,000, you're just shipping a couple cases over to the next store. Like, what's the risk in that, right? Versus, and if security has already been debunked, there's really no risk at that point. And then I think there are other third-party transporters who like have $100,000 worth of inventory floating around in a truck. So they're going to choose to probably put 2 people in that truck, but that's creating an unfair advantage for the people who don't.
And that's what I was a little confused. We had some great banter. So anyone who was in that room listening, thank you. I thought it was one of the better meetings I've been to. It was a little different though. I'd say I've been giving public comments to the CCC since they formed, and it was probably the first time where I was the only one in that room at that moment fighting for that topic, because a few others, were speaking. One was saying keep it for B2B. One was saying remove it for transportation only, B2B companies, and keep it for the others. So it was a little different because I'm used to, I feel from the start, really having a voice of saying like, what's good for Massachusetts. Like, let's think of Massachusetts. Let's think of our
So you're just walking into there and everybody having like, yeah, let's do it all.
Yeah, so I was a little outside my comfort zone. I'll be honest, my voice was pretty shaky. But again, we had great banter. I think we all respected each other's points, and they were all rooted in passion. I think the hard part is you got to look back and say, if it's not for safety and it's good for business, then why can't we help everyone? And I think the hard part is in Mass, and not to go off on a tangent, but I've been giving this a lot of thought because, again, I was very surprised that I was, one of the few with the opinion to remove it for everyone. Is that I think there's always been this David and Goliath struggle in Massachusetts, right? Since the jump of like MSO versus
everybody
versus
loves to
business.
point to the MSO, be like, they're the problem.
We do.
All this
We do.
things, yeah.
And rightfully so, I'm guilty of it too. And there are some that hurt the problem.
Well, of
That's
course.
the
There are some bad actors. Without a doubt.
But the issue is we never call it that. We just call it the whole. And that's kind of like the whole class loses recess, not the one who was causing the ruckus, right? But I think the hard part is we step back sometimes and we say, well, that's going to help the big business, the two-driver rule. A lot of people say, a lot of these groups can afford it. They're wholesaling, they're, rolling around with all this, but they don't realize the profit margin on wholesale is not the profit margin on retail. So we're not making that much money, and everything does count. But if we remove for them, they succeed. But if we keep this idea of if we remove it for the big, it helps them, but it helps the small. And the big get a win then, because I think this mindset of if we keep it in place, level playing field, it's never been a level playing field in Massachusetts.
No, it hasn't. Every license type has its own advantages.
Exactly.
And a person who chose to go that transport route, unfortunately, gave up the right to do plant touching.
And that's where I feel like that could change. And to me, because I never looked at the transport license, I didn't even know that was in there. In my opinion,
product manufacturing,
they should be fighting that then. Don't fight to keep two-driver for me. Let's remove that for everyone. That helps your bottom line.
Right.
And then let's all come together and fight to get you the ability to create, to have another license.
Because you do your own transport then.
We do. We do use third party. So we did use the groups that were in that room advocating against me, but that's okay.
How do you justify the cost for doing your own transport? Because we use a third-party transporter exclusively. We've never done our own transport. I don't think that's going to change anytime soon even.
And that was kind of my thought, because I don't feel that when you do the math on paper for us right now doing it does work out a little bit less than using them for the drops and stuff like that. But we still utilize the third parties because bandwidth, scheduling, etc. Sometimes you just need some help. So at least every single month we're using our third party friends to move orders for us. But for us in the beginning, they didn't exist. So that license hadn't been received by Eagle Eyes or Plymouth Armor or Triple M at that time. So we had to do our own delivery. So we've just kind of built it into everything that we do. But I was saying that I don't think that a lot we're saying if everyone can do one driver, then more people like yourself would do the delivery. And I feel that there's way more than that, because logistics, that's another person. It's a lot. It's not out of sight, out of mind.
Right.
Like it is when you give it to the third party. You're like,
I know,
okay, your problem now. You live with this issue.
Right.
Yes. It's not that. It's your problem until that van returns safely with your drivers in it. So people don't want to take that on. The cost of maintenance on a van.
Now you got to lease it, you got to outfit it, or you got to buy it outright and still got to outfit it with a bunch of security features like that. So it's not like something that you just turn on. You just go buy a Honda Civic and be like, hey, I'm just going to start driving all around the town.
Exactly. And I mean, the other thing too, when you do rely on a third party, is they do have a lot of vans. So when one goes down, they're like, okay, that one's out of commission, but I have this. We don't.
And they have a dedicated, mechanic to take care of that stuff.
So I do think there's a lot of benefits, and that's why I feel that the two-driver rule to one driver for all licenses would help everyone, because it will help their bottom line. Hopefully they can maybe even pass that along.
I'm hoping they will.
But I'm not speaking for them. I don't know how, but I just feel that it is something, again.
Yeah.
We look at these things, and again, same thing with waste. Two people to
That was a huge thing for us, actually,
what
because
in the world?
Since we're so busy during the week, we had somebody come over the weekend to do it. And since I live in this town, they were kind of asking us, and my wife also works here too, so we do have a family kind of...
There we go, family business.
My brother works here too. So my wife came in to be that second person, and we were wasting seltzer. It was just like, but it's liquid and it's like, so how many milligrams are in that 12 ounces? 5 milligrams and 355 milliliters, which is 355,000 milligrams. There's 5 milligrams in there. And that's so scary that we have to like have 2 people look at it, go down the drain.
Go down the drain. Right. And think about that. I mean, that's even crazier because you're just literally going down the drain. Like, but
yeah, we don't have to mix it with compost because it's already so diluted already.
Right.
We're going right into the sewer. Basically.
What this got, again, when you see where the regulations came from, like there were certain slip-ups, right? Like we all know there was some stuff found in a trash can of a lab.
Yeah,
and then
and
because
that's the
of
thing.
that,
Nobody ever anticipated what a drink was. Drinks didn't even exist in the first set of regulations.
but also that whole scenario wasn't like like that.
Nobody, yeah.
No one's digging through trash, and our trash is locked. So I guess I go back to like, for us, we're doing extraction. When we're trashing that plant matter, there's nothing useful in it,
Yeah, you
right?
took it all out.
You took it all out. Hopefully, if we did our jobs right, there's nothing left in that. Same thing, if we're wasting out like products, we're breaking up. 2 people to do the job. When you're weighing it, it's on camera, it's being logged, it's going into a dumpster that's locked. That's also has a log of who took the key, etc. But then why do we need a second person there?
Right.
I guess I look at all these things to just have someone stand there and supervise, to me, is not efficient and it's useless.
Right. Well, I agree. The expenses just add up, especially for the small players. And we don't have big VC-backed dollars just being like, hey, here's another $500,000 just to exist still. So I would hope we would get some savings on our third-party transporters because currently we pay $150 per trip, right? And $150, that means our MOQ has to be higher than I would like it to be. If somebody wanted just a case of something, I would totally love to do it, but financially it doesn't make any sense.
And I'll say that's where having your own transportation vehicle can come in, because you can make that decision.
Right.
It's not economical, but again, running a business, sometimes it's kind of like that pennied out case. That's not economical.
That's a loss leader.
That's a loss leader.
Sales, right?
Exactly. And that is really tough in an environment where businesses are used to having a loss leader to drive sales. It makes it very challenging in Canada. You cannot have a loss leader. I don't know how some of these groups are having one.
Well, speaking of just the profitability and in retail and stuff like that, actually, do you have any aspirations to do retail anytime soon, or?
No.
You're like, I'm good with that.
My fear is that retail over time will follow the tragedy of brick and mortar. Like, I don't know, with seeing, what is it? One of the delivery group, Grubhub, I think, coming out and saying in some states are going to deliver hemp products.
Yep.
I think groups are chomping at the bite or at the bit. I'm so bad with sayings. Jeez.
It was perfect. That's a new one. I'm going to use that one now. Chomping at the bite. Yeah, I love it.
That I think groups are eager to find a way into this, right? So I don't know how long. I hope it will follow the life of kind of liquor and you're seeing it stay in the community. For us, retail is a lot.
Yeah, for the future, I feel like it is, a DoorDash or whatever. But retail is really difficult. And then you've got consumers. And now you got to deal with the front line of actually being in retail shelf with consumers walking in there. And depending on where you are, there could be 3 stores in that town, right? And
yes.
Like, now how am I going to get those people into my store?
And we don't let them advertise. I'd say that's I just don't have aspirations for retail. I'm a big believer in people kind of going into the lane they're best in. And we have some really kick-ass retailers out there that are local, family-owned and operated. Like, I think we're seeing some awesome people who know what they're doing. We're also seeing some people come out of, the convenience store industry. So, of course, they know how to operate. They know how to operate. Liquor store industry, they know how to operate, which is great for the industry. We need people who know what they're doing to do what they do and do it well. But for me, the customer facing in that sense, that's the tough part. Like, how do you advertise? And that's where we feel the most pain for our retail partners. And we're putting a big emphasis on going out to places that our retail partners can't. As a brand, and hopefully you're finding it's getting a little bit easier to put ourselves in what we refer to as like cannabis adjacent events, wellness. I know you guys lead in a lot to wellness because both our product lines definitely fit that lifestyle. We're going to certain events like that where we're talking to people who we think consume or at least open to hearing about it and talking to them there and saying, great, where do you live? Okay, go see our friends at this store. Exactly. Go see our friends at this store, because the stores can't advertise. Right. So how can they get more people in there if the restrictions don't let them advertise?
Yeah, I think that's a great tip for a lot of brands out there, because a lot of brands who come in, it's usually because they love the plant and they're trying to, and then some people find out they're actually decent at business, and some people find out maybe they're not cut out for it.
Yes.
But for the people who are decent at business and are trying to get better, adjacent events is actually a super powerful way to do it, because you'd be surprised how many people actually consume. Yes. Sometimes when I go to an event, I'm shocked at all the people who've either tried our product or want to try it and stuff like that. And I'm just like, wow, these are just like, I mean, that's the title of this podcast is High Functioning. It's like, there's a lot of high functioning people out there that love weed too. And it's just that they're not so open about it and so blatant about it.
Exactly. Well, we still have those societal mindsets, right? Stigmas, right, against us, that people don't feel comfortable. They don't want to be judged by their PTA or anything like something like that. So, yeah, that's what we really find. And the other thing too that I've found at those events are that there are people who just aren't quite ready to walk into the dispensary because they have a preconceived notion that everyone inside those four walls knows everything about cannabis, and they're going to walk in and almost get laughed at like first day of school.
Right.
And you talk them off the ledge and let them know, no, you open those doors and they just want to help.
Right.
But you give them that little bit of knowledge and that confidence at that event where they're most confident. They're a yogi, they're at the yoga event, they're most comfortable there. They're going to talk to you. They maybe are going to ask you those questions. Yes, you give them a card, you send them off. They walk in there empowered.
Right.
They feel like they can now have that conversation and learn from that person. So it's all about bringing down the wall.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's what a lot of the fight really is. That the biggest fight that's still left, as far as from the brand's perspective, is stigma.
Yes.
You have to battle that constantly. Of course, we're still going to be fighting regulations, stuff like that, and federal legalization and all that stuff, and advocacy are all around that. But it's the general idea of the acceptance. And I actually faced something really recent in my family because I have 3 children. 2 of my oldest are teenagers. And I think my son kind of got teased that his dad has a weed company.
Teased? I would think he would be on the shoulders of...
Well, this kid is just like a teasing kid.
Oh, so terrible.
If you try to like argue with him, he'll just like throw nonsense at you kind of kid. And so my son got teased the other day. Yeah, your dad just, he owns a weed company. And so it's funny because I had never faced that before. I never anticipated that. I mean, I guess that would happen naturally, but I just think that kids are so oblivious, like who cares?
Right.
And we're so used to Massachusetts. It's been part of our culture for, 7, 8 years now. It was 2016, adult use has been there. But I think before that, obviously, it was medical. And then the first stores opened in 2018. Mm-hmm. So now we're talking going on to our 7th year of cannabis being fully legal and acceptable in society. But yet people still have that stigma being like, oh, I don't want to tell anybody, but like I consume your products.
And and that's kind of something where you got to want to like, what is being said at the you might have to go have a talk with those parents. Maybe they could use some of your product. You should give a care package for the parents.
And so my oldest daughter is a teenager also. She just turned 13 a couple months back. And one of the boys teased her and said something similar. And we were like, oh, his mom like buys our products. We know she does.
Oh my
So it's funny.
Yeah.
So the kids don't even know their parents are consuming it too, But yeah, so going through the teenage years has been already starting to be very interesting in my family. But stigma I still feels like one of those things that, that's why I originally called my company Everyday Cannabis, was because I was trying to fight that, being like, if it helped me so much, then why can't it help everybody else?
We had the same mindset, and that was like why I started this company, was that we deserve better as consumers. And I felt there wasn't care on edibles specifically, whether it was the extraction process or the input of the cannabis product, down to the food ingredients, right? Like everything was really bad for you, and it's wellness. And that was really the motivation, was we deserve better, because that is how I got, I was very reluctant. I believe the stigma until cannabis saved my life, right? So I do have to wonder sometimes, like, if I never gave in and if I never had that moment where I'm like, let me try it, would I be here? Yeah. I'd like to think eventually I would have found my way to this. But I did truly believe that it didn't have this idea of medical benefits to the degree that I witnessed firsthand using it.
Right.
And what spurred me to say, if I was like this, how many other people are like this? How many other people were letting the stigma hold them from this holistic product?
Right.
How many other people were going the route of pharmaceuticals when they could have a more balanced option at their fingertips?
Right.
And that's why we're here.
Yeah.
It was that. It is every day.
Yeah, that's the impetus for this company as well. We were trying to talk through about just the idea that there's so many benefits beyond even just the way it helped me, that there's so many people who just want to get a little extra pain relief at the end of the day, because whether they're working construction or some manual labor job, they get home, or maybe they're sitting at a desk all day and their lower back hurts. It doesn't matter what it might be. They can consume a little bit at the end of the day and just take that edge off without having to turn to alcohol, or without having to turn to, 2, 3, 4 ibuprofens before they go to bed just to like sleep through the night.
Right. And that's exactly the motivation. And that's just, I think we need more people in the room fighting that fight and creating products for the consumer with that mindset, and not so much how can I, create generational wealth off this one thing. We all hope we're going to have that, but I think we got to think about the consumer first and foremost if we want to stick around.
So you're actually spreading the word through multiple states.
We're singing the gospel of Coast. Yes. So
what was so you were just like, okay, Massachusetts, we're operating, we're doing really well. Let's look at X state. What was your first actual state that you were looking at?
So, Rhode Island was the first state that we launched in outside of Massachusetts. And that really came together because of a mutual friend introducing us to an operator there. Very like-minded down to the motivation, right? Mm-hmm. Would be great on this podcast. And we hit it off. And he's like, I'd love to bring Coast to Rhode Island. I think it'd be, great to offset what his production was, his own product line. So that was kind of how that started. And then that really pushed us to look at other options. So we do have Connecticut, which finally just dropped. Lots of hiccups in Connecticut. Products are on the menu across the state. So if you're listening from Connecticut, please check us out. And then Maryland and New Jersey will be up next.
In 2025?
2025. Yeah, we're hoping Maryland, March, April, but cannabis. Could be later. And then Jersey follow soon thereafter.
What is the biggest complication in doing these deals?
So
because you're not manufacturing for the audience. You're
correct.
Not setting up a brand new facility down there and doing all the work and hiring all the staff to do production. You're licensing it
to that. Yep. Yeah. So we're licensing the recipes, the brand. We're handling the marketing. We're doing, the in-state activations and stuff like that. So yeah, they handle under their license the manufacturing and selling of it. We're really handling more the branding, and consumer focus side.
Yeah. What are typical things that you are dealing with down there? Because you said it's complicated.
The headaches, I think, are just for us. Not being in that state, you are learning things secondhand. So that's much different. Massachusetts, we're heavily involved. Mm-hmm. So it's keeping up with all of these different state regulations because they are all very different. There are a lot of nuances that change from state to state. In some of the states we're in, our packaging has to be all black and white.
That's Connecticut.
Yeah, right. Connecticut and Rhode Island, which is luckily changing in Rhode Island, we think. But Connecticut, Maryland is very, very strict on design. Jersey's pretty strict on design. So each state has their own nuances, and that's been the hardest thing. Also, we're going into states where these are newer programs too. So the programs are having hiccups.
They're less evolved than Massachusetts, despite
what we say
about Massachusetts. We are ahead of most Easterns.
We do. We're on to 2.0 problems.
Right.
They're on 1.0 problems. So the testing labs being off, the chain of commands of who handles what issues maybe at the state haven't been penned out yet. Yeah. So it's a little bit of
Is Rhode Island just getting their regulations now?
No. They've adopted a lot of the medical ones. They're going through a second draft. So right now, I believe public comment, it may have closed, but they're going to be coming out with the next phase of licenses because there's only the 7 stores that are open. And then my understanding is some changes on the packaging side and stuff like that.
For colors or something like that.
Yeah.
That's fun. Yeah, because I always think about all these individual states. They all have these different rules. Obviously, federal legality. whenever that occurs, there'll be some unified version of that, and who knows which rules they're going to adopt, and all of a sudden,
oh goodness,
of course, and that's just going to open up a can of worms, of course. But
and that's what I'm really concerned about, because we're building these brands. Look at your beautiful packaging, right? That's gorgeous, and it's attractive to adults, right? Adults deserve nice packaging. But if we do go the route of this being FDA and all of that, how does branding and marketing play into a pharmaceutical world?
Right.
That's what I'm really concerned.
See the commercials of people just prancing through the gardens, being like, "Oh my God, my life is so great," and here is a beautiful little pill you can take. And
but the best part, we
disclaimers everywhere.
We won't have a mile-long disclaimer that ends in death.
Right, exactly.
For you, which would be nice.
Side effects may include death.
Yeah, right. Oof, never want to take those.
So talking a little bit more about, I guess, Massachusetts, heading back on that topic again, I do feel like retail, obviously, there's delivery and then there's retail. I'm assuming, obviously, the majority of the revenue is coming from retail because delivery is still, a small slice of the pie. So specifically brick and mortar, I mean, do you ever get upset at retailers because they charge like so much more over Keystone being 50% of the price?
It's challenging, and I understand, right?
What do you set to MSRP?
We try to say the Keystone, like the 50% and stuff like that. I mean, for our key account, obviously, listen, we're a product, right? If you buy more, you have better pricing. That's natural. Right. Everyone has that. So there are the ability to increase that margin on the retail side.
By decreasing the price of
by detailing the wholesale cost because of volume. But I get it. 280E is a bitch, and it's really killing the retailers. It is really frustrating because we are not making that much, right? That's not our markup.
Right.
If people do have that out there,
right.
I commend you. I wish we had that much, but we don't. And food, if everyone remembers when COVID hit, your grocery bills went up. What do we think happened to raw ingredients for edibles?
Everything goes up.
Everything went up. Packaging went up.
Has gone up. Crazy, I've heard.
I think I read an article they're using like Bitcoin is like buying in cocoa or something, like it's worth. So yes, and that's the hard part is we've seen everything go up, yet we've seen cannabis want to decline. And a lot of that is driven by the retailers. And I think it's just unfortunate that we're in such a new market that doesn't have a lot of data. But I urge the retailers, if they're listening, like, look at normal business models and look at how shelves should be stocked and where your profit should come from, because a blanket margin is not what any retail does, right? You get your aggregate, which is like, this is my overall store margin. But you have to look at items, and there's the intersection of velocity and margin. And I think we do have a lot of retailers in Massachusetts that I don't know have the
sophistication to understand those kind of models.
Or just the help to understand them. I don't know if it's sophistication. I think a lot.
Help, yeah.
Yeah, like, I mean, are there programs that can help? I think that's the hard part, is that I don't know. And if someone is listening and they know, I'd love to, like, what product that's sold wholesale to retail has that much of a markup at retail? That's a huge profit margin.
It's a huge profit margin. And I get 280E obviously is a huge pain in the size for anybody in retail. But we've seen our product marked up 4X at some point for wholesale. And we're just like, I feel bad for the consumer because, they go down the street and they can get it for half the price of what they're getting.
That's the tough part. And I think stores are really trying to figure, it does stink that the stores have to they're following the wrong ant, because they feel they have to, right? Like, to me, if someone continues to lower their price and lower their price and lower their price, that's not the right ant to follow, right? I think they're going back to the wrong colony. But you're seeing people do it because the mindset is, well, if Bob down the street is X and I'm X plus one, no one's going to come to my store. But I have to say, no one knows that Bob is X because Bob can't advertise. So in my opinion, all Bob is doing is giving his existing customer base a better deal.
Right.
And I don't know an existing customer is going to say, wow, that used to cost me $100. Now it costs me $75. I'm going to spend that $25. No, they're going to put the $25 in their pocket and be pumped that for once in their life in the last 5 years, a bill went down, not up, right? Because we're all used to going to the store and saying, oh, wow, last week it was $25 less.
Right.
And I think the mindset is more will come, but they can't come, they don't know. So you're really just kind of cutting your nose to spite your face.
Yeah,
I think with a lot of the retail models right now in mass.
I've heard so many horror stories on the retail side regarding, and of course, not mentioning any names, but regarding like, hey, this new store popped open like a mile down the street. They started cutting prices. We're going to start cutting prices. We're going to compete. And then we're going to have this loyalty program where every time you walk in, you get $5 off or all these things. Or like dollar pre-roll day or something like that. And all of a sudden you get like 3,000 people, not 3,000. You get a couple hundred people showing up for those pre-rolls. You sell all the pre-rolls and they never come back again. People are just chasing the deal.
They are chasing
the deal. They buy it all and they never come back to your store anyways.
And I think that's why I feel like looking at our friends in the liquor store model, right, is I would feel that you should have something on your shelf for every one of your customers that come in, but it's all about how much you stock of that. So if you can swing $1 pre-roll every day to get people through the door and it's a certain amount, do that. But have it be every day so you're getting people in every day, not that one day. Mm-hmm. And then, is it having those luxury items? Like, I know you guys have a premium, we're a premium. Obviously, we might not have the velocity of a sell-through as something that is more of a couple dollar product. So you have to stock, I guess, the quantities correctly. And I think that's where some stores aren't able to see that. And I think what it goes back to is, I don't know if we just have do we have the data platforms to give us that information readily at a click of a button to say, what do I need? And I don't know if retailers have that. Yeah, I don't know if that exists for them.
Yeah, it's kind of that mystery kind of black box. We're just like, what's going on inside these retailers? Like, what software do they have? Does the Dutchie POS have this ability, or Leaf Logics or whatever? Do they have the ability to have those insights that they'll actually show sales velocities so accurate that you're like, okay, we know that? Because even reordering is...
If you're selling out of something, guys, buy it again.
Yeah, your reordering is all over the map. It's just like, okay, now we're like 2 weeks out of the store that hasn't been in stock. They're going to find somebody else to buy it. And we're driving to go find our product.
And this is, I think, where retailers would be shaking their head no, because I do feel it's twofold. We're brands. We're both very passionate. And we say people will travel for brands. Right. Yes. As a brand, I also know people will buy what's in front of them because they just got to the store. The thought of driving somewhere else is non-existent. I'm aware of that. But I do think a lot of stores dismiss the fact that people are building brand loyalty, because when you do present that, they say they'll buy something else. But as a brand, I'm sure you've received emails from customers saying, I bought your product at XYZ dispensary and it's been out of stock and they don't know anything. And then you reach out to the store and, you have to figure this out.
Right. And then the store gets mad at us being like, hey, we'll come to you when we need a new reorder. And we're just like, but we have emails from customers and phone calls from customers being like, I go to the store and I buy your product consistently.
And if it's not there, they can't buy it, or we're sending them somewhere else. So the hard part to me, I say to a store, is we all want to sell more product. We all have bills to pay. We all need to make some money. If you bring in my product and it sells through and it's sold through for a profit for you, to my understanding, you didn't have to give it away, then why not reorder it?
Yeah, those are the brands you should be supporting.
Yes.
The ones that's consistently bringing you money.
And I think the hard part is we have so many groups that are in tough spots. They have to take the deals.
Right.
So the pennied out, they have to take that. If someone is willing to give me a case for free and I can now mark that up to normal retail and sell these 2 cases for the price of one, holy moly, that's going to help me pay my light bill.
Exactly.
I'm going to do it.
Right. But then if the product sits on the shelf, then you're like,
that's what I gotta say, guys. Figure out how much your vault costs for rent. Charge your products rent.
Right.
How much did that product cost in rent to sit in your vault?
I love that.
If it's not selling through, but you got it at a good deal, but at the end of the day it cost you X.
Right.
Was it a good deal?
Taking up space for another brand that will sell faster.
Exactly.
That makes a ton of sense. Speaking of the finance side, it's something we've definitely talked about many times in the past. How are receivables doing right now?
We're steady with the debtors not paying.
But has it improved since we last discussed? I mean, we haven't talked about it probably for months, but
yes, it's improved, because I think a lot of that, I think people took notice when it was really becoming a loud topic in Massachusetts. I think some of the groups that were really bad did start paying, but I also think we got smart. We looked back and like, okay, we're taking our licks. Like, we let that go way too long. We were being way too nice. We were being naive, because we do have a heart. And we are here firsthand. We know how hard it is. We are friends.
It's just like, and that's why it's funny
because friends, man, they burn you.
Exactly. Well, that's why, when you loan money to a friend, you expect not to get paid back, right?
Exactly.
In this case, it really was coming true, where it was, you're like, okay, I totally trust these people. Like, let's go do it. You send them a bunch of product, and then 30 days, you're like, hey, what's going on? 60 days. Hey, guys, are you guys still open? Like, the product's been sold at this point.
That's just really hard.
What do you do? Like, there's only so many times you can knock on somebody's door before they're just like, get lost. But at the same time, you owe us money. So what are you doing,
Exactly. And that's really the hard part, is that we are all in it together, but it does feel like you get taken advantage of. So I'd say slight improvement, but more so maybe because we're not selling to those groups that we're taking advantage of.
We definitely have a list of like, we just won't sell to these specific stores anymore because it just doesn't make sense. It's like, yeah, if you want to just give them free product, go for it. But otherwise, like, you're not going to get your money back.
And I'll say that as a brand, let me just give it to the customer for free if I can. Let them win. Because for me to give it to you, for you to mark it up, to give it and think of that profit margin. They're not even buying it.
Right.
So they're selling it for that. They're making all of that. That's a huge profit margin. And for me, that's just really the challenging thing, is that good people keep getting taken advantage of in this industry. And a lot of us got into it to help that end consumer.
Yeah, exactly. And, I've shared that same philosophy where I would love to just give product away. And again, pennying out over it's being like, hey, if you like it, go to your local store and buy it again, right? Because it's not like it's so not dangerous in that situation because I'm handing it to another person who's 21 plus or whatever. But I do feel for shows like Flower Expo, which is a B2B show. So it's buyers the first day, and then there's bud tenders the second day. I don't know how companies like Flower Expo are going to continue to exist in that model, because if it's a reasonable cost, I spoke to attorneys about this already. They were basically like, well, if you sell it to at cost, so say our product costs $10 to make, if we sell it to if we use a penning out version, but instead of pennies, it's $10 a pop. And then at that point, it's a reasonable cost. Then we're going to hand it off to a consumer anyways as a gift. Then you kind of would be able to make that argument. But at the end of the day, now it's $10 a bottle versus a penny.
Right.
So it's like, now it's like a lot of money now we're talking about, because we're trying to get people to experience the product before they buy it.
And that's the hard part. And that's the hope I have for social consumption. Hopefully people got to review the regs and got their recommendations in, because I think there's definitely some stuff that's got to be cleaned up in there. But my hope with that is that would be a good way for us as brands to introduce ourselves directly to the consumer. And then if they enjoy it so much, like, great, you had it at the cafe, you had that wonderful experience. Now you can go buy it at your local dispensary. So
what products are yours do you feel like social consumption is going to work really well in?
Well, one of the products that's new for us are chocolate squares. I think we'll do really well because they're large. It's kind of like the Ghirardelli size, and they're individually wrapped, and they're single serve. So it's scored. You could split it if you wanted to do 2.5. I've gotten our delicious organic chocolate, so something you want to consume. I could really see that being something served with like a nice cup of coffee. And then this is your chocolate square that you could either melt in or you can eat on the side.
Exactly. Or you do one of those.
Or melt it down, maybe, pour it around a little
Well,
dessert.
that's where you can kind of get. So, and this is where I guess, I don't know, the regulations have it. They're draft regulations, obviously.
Correct.
But because I think of like an experience like that, or even like doing like an affogato where it's just like ice cream and coffee and like espresso. And now you're really enjoying a really great experience. And the espresso has a little bit of, unflavored beverage enhancer or good vibes in it. And the ice cream is infused ice cream, and the chocolate or whatever. Right. Everything's just symbiotic. But can you give a person 15 milligrams if it's 555? Just for instance, right?
What? I gotta be honest. I don't know, and I apologize for not knowing if I don't know if the regs had any sort of dosing.
Well, because I feel like if it works like a dispensary, you kind of just hand it a product. It's not like there's going to be a chef maybe making these great creations out of these products.
Right.
So, because they can melt on a bunch of your chocolate, right?
Right.
And they can make this beautiful chocolate thing.
I don't know. See, I don't know.
It's mixed with, it's a souffle or something.
I would imagine they're going to probably keep it to a single serving.
Right.
That's what I imagine. So that's where I feel like drinks are going to be a big thing at these social consumption spots because of the ease. And again, it's the idea of having a few. But again, like, can you serve someone? I don't know if there's anything about serving.
Because I always get worried about that stuff too, because advertising, again, we always go back to like, oh, how do we advertise? And sometimes we see competitors saying like, oh, take this product and combine it, and it comes up to 10 mgs. And it's like, can you recommend
and that's
10 more than 10 mgs?
Because who decides that, right? Like the state decided that this is a serving,
right.
But who, if you look at a Class A, I mean, that's going to be one, but if we had like a bagged product in here, chances are there's more than one serving in it. And people sit and have, multiple servings. Yeah, so exactly. I don't know how, and that's where I actually want to look back, because I was focused on a few other parts of the draft regs. Yeah, just more so like...
Are you like a tasting room or anything in?
We would love to partner with some groups that are working on license. We really feel like our brand would lend itself to the aspect of a social consumption, right? This elevated experience, really giving them something high quality, because at the end of the day, they're going to need to charge some money to make that work, because 280E comes hard at retail. It's going to be the same implication. They don't make anything. All they do is sell. So they have no deductions.
Yeah. And then I feel like, obviously, one of the hardest businesses to run ever is a restaurant. So it's like, now you're talking about 280E, restaurant, employees.
And insurance. Who's insuring consumption lounges? There's not that many.
Liability, because you could have tips training to identify if a person's overconsumed, and then people are getting into their cars and driving away. There's a whole other thing, which is why I was asking about tasting room, because one of the things we've thought about is, and again, we're not social equity, so we don't, I mean, I think I'm social equity. I still have to follow up on this.
You should find out. There's
benefits to be
benefits equity. If you are.
I'm MBE, so it's fine. I get some advantages, not obviously the full on benefits, but we were looking at like, what if we did a tasting room inside our facility?
Oh, wow.
You can in the social consumption reg,
be within
a little. That's part of the experience, and I don't think you can operate them at the same time. So I think it's kind of like you have production runs until 5 p.m. and then the tasting room opens at like 6.
I mean, that would be pretty cool. That would be a great experience, I think, for the consumers to be able, like, why are breweries exciting? People want to see how the sausage is made.
Right.
It's really cool.
That's why they have big glass windows. You see all the tanks inside.
Right.
That's why Trade Roots has the big
windows.
People
love it. Yes, yeah. And it's pretty cool. Like, I mean, it elevates, we are special. We are unique. Why can't we share that with the consumers?
Exactly.
Why do we have to make it such a cut and dry kind of experience?
Exactly. All right, we're at time, but I will say that, is there anything else you wanted to plug or anything else that you wanted to mention? Anything we didn't cover that you thought was interesting to follow up on?
No, I thought this was great.
Great. So thank you so much for coming on. And for those who have not tried Coast yet, you're in for a treat. These things are absolutely delicious. And look out for the new Coast drop for Valentine's Day. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you for having me.